On a pure ingredient basis, this bagel only cost me about 67 cents to make. If I walk out of my house to a bagel shop, a plain bagel would surmount to about $2.50. Now, I could say the smart thing to do then is to save about $2 and make bagels at home. But what about the labor costs? What if I don't own any ingredients? How much is that actually going to cost? And the answer is a lot. So I want to break down the costs of making bagels if you only own something like an oven and a stove. What would this run you if you had to go buy every single ingredient, all of the cookware needed, and then would it be actually worth it to make the bagels at that point? So let's dive in. Today's recipe is going to be sourced, and I think you guys are going to love this one. I got it from the library, the Handbook of Food Products Manufacturing, a book series I would only describe as over-encumbering. But in these 2,700 pages of these $800 textbooks, we get a lot of good information about how to make many different foods. And this guy is where I pulled out my bagel recipe from. On a $12 scale and into a $3 bowl, dissolve 48 cents of malt syrup, a tenth of a cent of tap water, add half a cent of vinegar, and to that, add 21 cents of active dry yeast and let that come to life over 15 minutes. After the wait, premix 92 cents of all-purpose flour, 41 cents of vital wheat gluten, and 2 cents of salt into a bowl. Slowly add the dry to the wets to help facilitate the hydration process. Once a semi-cohesive mass forms, overturn it onto the remaining dry ingredients. Knead this dough until it absorbs all the flour. This is a pretty low hydration dough with a flour to water ratio of 2 to 1, so I always feel like there's too much flour, but with the right coercion, it will work its way in. Now the important question is, what is your labor actually worth? So I clocked in about 17 minutes to fully knead this dough. I decided to value my labor as the same as if I went and got a job at In-N-Out in California. They start at about $20 an hour, so this amounts to what is approximately $5.67 of labor. Now, of course, that's an overgeneralization. Maybe we could do the federal minimum wage, but I thought this would be a fair assessment given I have a PhD. Transfer the dough ball into the same bowl that we measured out the dry ingredients. Hey, look at that. We get to save some money that way. Cover it in about 1/1000th of a penny of plastic wrap and let it sit for about 30 minutes. The dough is going to rest and proof for about 90 minutes total, so after every 30-minute interval, we're going to punch down the dough and then let it sit for another 30 minutes. Generally, it's going to follow the same format, just punch it down, except for the last 30 minutes, we're going to try and stretch out the dough into a log. Having the dough in this format is going to help us in the hand rolling process. This is going to sit for 30 minutes, and once it's properly inflated, we can actually start making bagels. Gently unwrap the dough to help protect the airiness of it. We need that to help us hand roll the bagel. Bisect the dough using an $8 piece of metal and set one off to the side to be hand rolled. Wrap the other piece of dough. Demarcate the dough into 1/3 and hand roll the bagels. Here's a quick lesson on how to do this from me. Now, I've got to say, rolling out bagels by hand is got to be like one of life's greatest joys. As a baker, this is probably one of my favorite things to do. And the goal here is that you're going to stretch out the bagel using a pole, kind of like whipping motion. And you're going to wrap around your hand, grab onto where that third mark is, and then you're just going to rip and tear. And when you do that, you're going to end up with a nice soft interior on the bagel here, and that's going to allow it to stick to itself. You're going to place your hand firmly on the chopping block, and then you're just going to roll off, and boom, you get this nice, beautiful swirl on the bagel. And this is going to give it a nice, beautiful pattern when you bake it and pull it out of the oven. Doing that by hand and making something just as gorgeous as this can become is seriously, you just can't beat it. This is why this is one of my favorite recipes to do. It's a lot of work, but man, I love it so much. So let's do that again. Place the bagels on about $21 lined with about 7 cents of parchment paper. Cover the bagels with the same plastic wrap as before to save about 1/1000th of a penny. some good cost savings. These bagels are going to go to the fridge overnight to cold ferment. This will give the bagel some blisters and the dough a toasted exterior once it comes out of the oven. Into $420, we're going to add 2 cents of water and then dissolve that with about $1.80 of barley malt syrup. The barley malt syrup can, in theory, be replaced with molasses or possibly even honey, but the barley malt syrup is going to give you the best external flavor and external crisp on the bagels. I really wouldn't skimp on this ingredient because it does give the best results out of all the tests that I did at home. And although we're going to be bringing up this water to a boil, it's important to do these steps in cold water. And the reason for that is because we're going to add in some baking soda, approximately about 2 cents worth. And it's really important that we are doing this cold because we're mixing an acid, barley malt syrup, and a base, the baking soda, and we don't want to make an unintentional volcano and ruin the kitchen. Once you have a vigorous rolling boil, and I do mean a vigorous boil, add the bagels in batches. If the water does not stay at a boil, the exterior of the bagels won't set properly, so it's really important to not overcrowd the pot here and make sure that you stay at a rolling boil. Even right here, the boil's a little too weak. You're going to boil the bagels for 1 minute total, flipping every 30 seconds or so. You don't have to be too gentle with the bagels, you can actually be pretty forceful here. Any dents or crevices that form during this process are going to bake out, aka the bagels are still going to rise in the oven even if they deflate at all during the boiling process. After the full minute has passed, you're going to extract out the bagels, and just to prove a point, I'm going to give this guy a little spin, 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 and see, like, no matter what you do to this thing, it's still going to turn into a good bagel, so pay attention to this guy later. The bagels are then going to go into a 450 degree oven for about 18 to 20 minutes total. The bagels should be flipped about 10 to 12 minutes or about halfway through in order to prevent the bottoms from burning. My oven is a little bit hotter in the back, so I do rotate the pan as well. After the 20 minutes total, extract the bagels and enjoy. Now, what are our total costs? Well, if you need to buy every single ingredient, that should put you in the ballpark about $55. It took me about 45 minutes of active labor to weigh out the ingredients, knead the dough, and do the dishes over 2 days. So that amounts to about $15 in labor costs. Now for the equipment. This should run you about anywhere from $100 to $500 depending on what you buy. That means for this bagel, you could spend upwards of $577 just to have a cost savings of $1.80 when compared to going out. Excluding the labor, that means you would need to make about upwards of 320 bagels just to break even when compared to going outside and just buying a bagel from your local bagel shop. Now, of course, if you don't use a Le Creuset Dutch oven to boil your bagels into and you just use a cheap pan or pot that costs about $12, yeah, you can save a significant amount of money and that will bring your costs down. However, for this channel, I did want to use a Le Creuset, A, because it just sits in my closet and I don't use it, and B, I actually want to calculate what's the cost-use basage of using that Le Creuset. So on this case, I've used it in one recipe, that's going to be $420. If I use it again, that's going to kick it down to $210 per recipe, and so on and so forth. By doing that, I'll be able to properly see, is buying a Le Creuset Dutch oven worth it? And lastly, if you did enjoy the content, please subscribe because that helps me get this channel started. I really want to hit the monetization goal, and then after that, I don't really care what you do. But until then, just subscribing really helps me out. Thanks. Bye.